Emotional maturity is also demonstrated when a person can hear another's opinion without feeling inherently diminished or attacked. People with varied viewpoints are able to teach each other and learn from one another. So viewpoint diversity exposes these biases that are so involved so that people can become more objective. Be mindful of what you're saying to whom, right? Mindful of the jokes that you're saying, mindful of the potential implication.
Welcome and thank you all for joining us for another Justia webinar. My name is Nina and I'll be the moderator for today. Now, to kick things off, I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Ama Carey Carey. Ama K. Carey Carey Esquire is the founder of Miles Tales Publishing and Education Consulting and the author of The Talk, a Black family's conversation about racism and police brutality, Sunni's Gift, How Sunni Overcame Bullying to Reclaim the Gift, and other best-selling books. Her unique understanding of social issues, business, and the law has enabled her to become a relevant voice on issues as varied as race relations, women's issues, dating, parenting, self-love, hair bullying, and entrepreneurship. Her articles have been published in MSNBC's The Griot, The Huffington Post, The Atlantic, Madame Noir, and other publications. Ms. Carey Carey has also appeared on The Today Show, Al Jazeera's The Stream, The Nate Berkus Show, and Fox Business. The webinar presentation that you're about to watch will be approximately 1 hour, and if you have any questions that come up during the presentation, please feel free to submit them by clicking the Q&A button in the control panel at the bottom of your screen and send them in there. All right, now without further ado, here is Ama to discuss viewpoint diversity, engaging in civil conversations.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. How are you all today? I hope that everyone is phenomenal and in great spirits and ready for a phenomenal and very timely program. So what are we talking about, my friends? Viewpoint diversity, engaging in civil, courageous conversations in legal practice. Let me let that sit with you, because I think it's incredibly timely given the current moment. So what are we going to do during this program? We're going to set the intention and have a mindful moment. Then I'll be discussing what is viewpoint diversity, why we need viewpoint diversity. We're going to have presented particular tools for civil discourse. Then we'll have an interactive exercise. So I hope to see you all in the Q&A giving your answers. We're going to talk about a tool for fostering courageous conversations, and that tool is restorative sharing circles. And then we'll have a conclusion and questions. So let's start with the intention. What do we want here? Greater understanding of viewpoint diversity. We want inspiration to cultivate viewpoint diversity. So I hope that you were inspired coming in and you'll be more inspired coming out. Our goal is to also have tools that enable respectful, cross-perspective conversations. And then we want to rehumanize each other. So let's just have a moment of silence, do a little deep breathing to ourselves before we begin. Thank you. Thank you. We've had our mindful moment. All right now, my friends. So what is viewpoint diversity? So there's a range of different and varied ways of thinking or perspectives about topics that may be related to social norms, politics, economics, health, and other arenas. So I put some hot button issues here. I want you to put some hot button issues in the Q&A because I believe in interaction. So animal testing, artificial intelligence, abortion, social media usage, human cloning, school security, euthanasia legalization, the death penalty, vaccination. These are all topics that if you were to bring up these topics in a room, you would certainly have many passionate discussions. Put in the Q&A some of your own thoughts about what might be some hot button issues. Go ahead. I'm waiting to see that, and I hope that Nina and Lavinia will let me know what's going on in the Q&A. What are some other topics? We might add immigration to that. Any other topics that we find here?
Got someone, Jasmine, actually responded politics and religion. And then Susan Linson replied GMO or bioengineered foods. We've got firearms, taxes, anti-Semitism, definitely like some business administration issues. So lots of different responses here, really widespread.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you who brought your topics. That said, there's no shortage. All right. I have some in a few seconds. You were able to bring some. There is no shortage of hot button issues that bring about various views, right? And now we might think of some of the things that influence these different viewpoints, right? I'm not saying that these things determine viewpoints. I'm saying they may have an influence. And this goes to issues of identity, right? You may have your stance on abortion might be impacted by your biological sex, right? Whether you identify as male, female, or intersex, your gender or gender identity, your sexual identification, your socioeconomic status, right? Your race may impact your perspective, your ethnicity or nation of origin, right? Immigration status, your skin tone or hair texture may influence. Again, I didn't say determine, so don't write me saying I'm a no, don't write me, okay? I say influence your religion or your ethical system, your political beliefs, your parental or marital status. Certainly, my viewpoints on certain things change before I got married, after I got married, after I got divorced, before I had kids, after I got kids, your age, your educational background, your veteran status, your mental ability or brain wiring, your ability or disability. My brother, unfortunately, some years ago was running during football practice. He coaches Little League. Both knees broke simultaneously, right? Can you imagine? He had to have double knee surgery. His whole perspective on accessibility changed. Before, he was just moseying on down the road, walking around all the time. But when he had to use a wheelchair or crutches, the whole city seemed different to him, right? Your personality, whether you're introverted or extroverted, we can just keep on going on and on and on. Your culture and upbringing, your mental health, your personality, your health history, your hobbies, your family or family structure, whether you grew up with your grandmother, whether you were adopted, your birth order. Some people think your astrological signs, right? What generation you're in, Generation Alpha, Generation Z, millennials. There's someone funny I watch on LinkedIn who brings in all these different perspectives and changes his clothes a little bit to represent boomers versus Gen X. And all of them have a different perspective, right? The media you've consumed, your social circles, the books you've read, your personal experiences, family history, your birth order. I'm the eldest daughter. And, before it didn't really occur to me all the time. But now that I've seen more social media influencers talking about birth order, I'm like, ooh, there's something to it, right? Your food and diet, your pet ownership. Yes, I put food and diet. I was watching this man who's a vegan, but he wasn't a vegan. He said when he became a vegan, he feels as if he became more emotional. And one day he ran over a squirrel in his car and was crying profusely. And he said when he was a meat eater, he wouldn't have had that reaction. Put in the Q&A for me, please. What other things have I left out? Because again, this list could be exhaustive. What other things do you believe often has an influence on your different perspectives about topics, right? Before these many that I listed. Nina, if you see any in the chat, please let me know. But again, do we have some, Nina?
Not quite yet, but feel free to put those in the Q&A and we'll definitely build on those. Oh, our first one, we've got Jerica mentioned weight. Susan said quality of last night's sleep, your worldview and trauma from Jasmine. Definitely all factors.
I love it. Your weight, 100%, your size. whether you're walking around in one body versus another. And some of you have seen it because one body can be different sizes over a lifetime. I really appreciate that. Trauma, appreciate that. Whether you've had a good night's sleep. I have a 15-year-old who we were talking one day, and he loves studies and so forth. And he said that there was a study that said judges gave harsher sentences in Muslim majority countries during Ramadan. Meaning these people may have been hungry because, of course, they're fasting from sun up to sundown, and they saw an impact on the sentences based on Ramadan fasting. So very interesting. Thank you so much, right? So now, given that, I think we've proven the point, people, that various aspects of your identity, of your life, of your background, of your personality, of your personal history impact your viewpoint. And that, to me, is a good thing because we need viewpoint diversity. What does viewpoint diversity do for us? Why do we need it? And I'm sure you knew this coming in, but we're going to strengthen your reason for knowing this. Or if you agree, some of you may say no, right? It expands self-awareness and maturity, right? So self-awareness is our understanding of our own feelings, motives, and desires vis-a-vis others. When you can be self-aware and say, okay, cool, right now I feel it this way. Right now I feel that way, right? Instead of just being triggered constantly, you're able to reflect on how you're feeling. Self-awareness also consists of understanding that your own feelings, motives, and desires are different from others. I know some of you are like, isn't this so basic? But I'm telling you, it's not to many people. I've had experiences that let me know that I have met adults who did not realize that other people have a different mind than them. And they instead want to punish people every time those people don't have the same perspective. I've experienced this, so I can tell you this, right? From experience, that not everyone is really getting this on a neurological level. Emotional maturity is demonstrated when a person understands the difference between fact and opinion and realizes that others are entitled to their own opinions. Emotional maturity is also demonstrated when a person can hear another's opinion. Now, this is going to be key. And in your interpersonal relationships, I'm sure some of you have seen this. Emotional maturity is also demonstrated when a person can hear another's opinion without feeling inherently diminished or attacked. Again, some of you go ahead and put your comments in the Q&A, whether you also have had an experience like mine in which you've met someone who felt attacked simply by you having a different opinion. It exists. If you have not yet experienced it, or if you're never going to experience it, that's one thing. But I personally have experienced it. Please share if you've experienced it before. Nina, is anyone sharing?
Not just yet, but we would really love to hear from you. It doesn't have to be a ton of detail, but maybe it's a conflict at work or even in your personal life. This anonymous attendee said yes via social media. They've really experienced that. Very, very common.
Yes. Okay, now I'm seeing it. Yep, in my work. Yeah, among family. Thank you. I knew I wasn't alone here. Right? Okay, great. So now we said that viewpoint diversity expands your self-awareness and maturity. But it also allows us to grow intellectual humility, which is the foundation in many cases for being inspired to learn. Because when you realize, oh, intellectually, I don't know about this, then you feel like learning more. If you knew everything under the sun, why would you be inspired to learn more, right? So intellectual humility allows a person to grow in knowledge through recognition that he, she, or they does not have infinite knowledge. So there's always more to learn. People with varied viewpoints are able to teach each other and learn from one another. So viewpoint diversity exposes these biases that are so involved so that people can become more objective, right? So when we are around people of various viewpoints, if any of you have done debate, there's actually a movie about debate. It's kind of about debate. It's about speech and these different viewpoints. The name of the movie is Speech. It's a great movie, right? And it talks about young people figuring out how to understand another person's perspective. So viewpoint diversity enables a process where fact can be more efficiently separated from opinion. Because certainly, if you're around all people who take something to be fact, then you're more likely to think it's a fact. Versus when you're around others who say, no, 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 no. I've also seen this, I've also seen that, then we know that they're not facts, right? Why else do we need viewpoint diversity? It sharpens our reasoning skills. Like I was just talking to you about that great movie Speech that shows young people engaging in debate and how it sharpens their reasoning skills. It allows holes in arguments to surface. Reasoning skills are sharpened as a person attempts to fill the holes. So viewpoint diversity inspires greater research and more detailed analysis. And in this age, this information age where information spreads, I mean, this helps all of us, right? Right? There's some things that we thought were fact. Like I saw, I believe it was a New York Times article not so long ago about gray hair being reversible. There are a lot of people, I'm sure, who thought it was a fact. Once you have gray hair, it cannot be reversed. But I'm sure some people had experiences, right? Like I was listening to a WBI one day, and this person was talking about moving upstate and drinking well water, and all of a sudden his hair got darker from drinking well water. So this was his subjective, well, not subject, it was his personal experience. And so when more people are able to share, then they do research. Oh, really? What could happen? Why would well water make your hair turn darker, et cetera, right? It pokes holes in arguments that people thought were fact. Like this is a very frivolous example that I'm giving you, but it applies the same to many things. Okay, great. It prevents confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency to seek and remember information that confirms and bolsters pre-existing beliefs, theories, ideas, or stereotypes. And all of you have seen this, right? A very light version of what is confirmation bias, or the ability to start seeing something once you already believe it to be true. And this is very light, very frivolous, right? Is have you ever met someone who's like at your job maybe, or in your office, and you meet the person for the first time and you think you've never seen the person in your entire life? Then once you're introduced to the person, they start popping up all the time, right? So it's because you're looking for the person now. Now you recognize the person that they show up. They were always there before. That's a little light example that I give to just give you a hint of confirmation bias, right? So hordes of individuals who think the same way bolster stereotypes for one another, and falsehoods can easily be regarded as facts. Easily, if we do not have viewpoint diversity. So now why else do we need it? Now this one's a big one. It prevents groupthink. Groupthink is a phenomenon that occurs when a group of well-intentioned people make irrational or non-optimal decisions spurred by the urge to conform or the belief that dissent is impossible. I want you to start thinking about examples of this, people, because there are many examples in history of terrible things that have occurred in human history due to groupthink. Please start putting your historical examples in the Q&A. This is intended to be interactive, right? So the problematic or premature consensus that is characteristic of groupthink may be fueled by a particular agenda, or it may be due to group members valuing harmony and coherence above critical thought. I got this from Psychology Today. Groupthink stifles creativity and innovation. All right, my dear people, we have 106 people on here, so I know some of you are history buffs. Can you please provide some examples of phenomenon of groupthink when a group of potentially well-intentioned people made irrational or non-optimal decisions spurred by the urge to conform, thinking that belief was impossible? Nina, is anyone giving us some examples?
Yes, so we have the first one that's really more of a cultural example, but child marriage being popular in some cultures. Jasmine mentioned the Holocaust and the Arab slave trade, which maybe aren't well intentioned, but definitely can fall under those things. Witch trials. We have definitely some of what's going on in our politics today with MAGA and things like that. Other people are saying that There's like Boston Marathon bombing and those kinds of things. So really just some major world events that have resulted from a lot of people thinking in the same way.
Excellent examples. Thank you so much for all of you who've put in the chat these examples. I think these, if any of you have watched some of these historical movies, like one of my, I mean, favorite is a hard word to say when it's something so terrible, but I watched a movie called, I recommend, it's called, oh my goodness, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. And it was about the Holocaust. And so you see, and you're there watching it, like, how did people not know that this was wrong, right? Or people, when you watch Schindler's List or Hotel Rwanda, when there's a scene where they're like, go out and kill those cockroaches. And you're like, what is going on here? Please stop. Like, right? So again, thank you. These are excellent examples. Group think. It's possible that people thought that they were doing the right thing. Many of you have heard of the milligram experiment, where people just respond to the higher up. It was, I believe, performed at Yale, and there was a Yale researcher there, and he says, go ahead and push that button. And the person hears someone screaming, and yet they keep on pushing because they say, oh, you told me to push, right? So when we don't have viewpoint diversity, we have those issues of hierarchy and whatnot. People who are otherwise decent, normal, regular people very often engage in irrational, non-optimal, and as you all have pointed out through your examples, deadly decisions spurred by the urge to conform or the belief that dissent is impossible. And I really appreciate some of these examples about some of the traditions that keep on holding on despite the fact that, you know, we have more information, hopefully more resources. But if people believe, hey, child marriage, we must promise this child in marriage at age 10, etc., or this child must get married at 15, 16 years old, even though, and there's no room in some societies to say, but wouldn't it be better for this child to go to school? Wouldn't it be better if this child has a dream of becoming a teacher or becoming an engineer? But in some cultures, those sort of viewpoints are not allowed to be expressed and are not heard. Thank you so much. So this is a phenomenal tool. This is the ADL's Pyramid of Hate. And I really, 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 really love this tool because it shows us how, at the very minimum, at the surface, there are certain issues, but these issues can keep on becoming more and more extreme until you get to something horrendous and horrible, such as genocide. So biased attitudes at the bottom. Stereotyping, fear of differences, justifying biases by seeking out like-minded people. Lack of viewpoint diversity there, right? Biases by seeking out like-minded people, seeking out information to confirm one's existing beliefs. We were just talking about that. What is that? Confirmation bias, right? Ding, 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 right? Seeking out information confirm one's existing beliefs or biases, lack of self-reflection or awareness of privilege. Ding, 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 ding. What we were just talking about earlier about viewpoint diversity, aiding maturity and self-awareness. This is at the opposite of that self-awareness is at the bottom. And so many people think that these things are harmless, but according to the ADL's Pyramid of Hate, it keeps on getting more extreme. So we start with just the biased attitude. We start with the lack of maturity. We start with the lack of self-awareness. We start with the confirmation bias. We start with these stereotypes. But the next stage of that is acts of bias. What are the acts of bias? Non-inclusive language, insensitive remarks, microaggressions, biased and belittling jokes. And this happens all the time where someone will say, oh, it was just a joke. Don't be so sensitive. That's level 2 of the Pyramid of Hate, people. We're getting closer and closer to genocide. Cultural appropriation, social avoidance and or exclusion, name calling, ridicule, bullying, slurs, epithets, dehumanization. I just gave these examples, right? And some of you had put these examples in the chat of the Holocaust, saying those people are not real humans. It's fine if we do X, Y, and Z to them. Horrendous, right? I gave the example for Hotel Rwanda. Go and kill those cockroaches. They're not cockroaches. They're human beings, right? the dehumanization, the slurs, and the bullying. Once we get to that level, we're all at level 2, and there are only 5 levels, people, right? So we're then at level 2. Then we go on to level 3. Systemic discrimination, criminal justice disparities, inequitable school resource distribution, housing segregation, inequitable employment opportunities, wage disparities, voter restriction. Is this sounding very familiar, people? Right? And suppression, unequal media representation. Level 3. Only 2 more to go. Next up, bias motivated violence. And now we're really in trouble, right? When we get to the bias motivated violence. Threats, desecration, vandalism, arson, assault, rape, murder, terrorism. And then finally, we have genocide. The act or intent to deliberately and systematically annihilate an entire people. Wow. Wow. So all of you have the slides. I think this is a phenomenal, and you can Google it yourself. Of course, if you don't download the slides, you can just Google the ADL's Pyramid of Hate. Wow. And all of you have seen this, and from your knowledge of history, you've seen these progressions, and you've seen that, and you see various stages of this, I'm sure, potentially, even in your own life and even at work. Even at work. Okay, great. So now, why do we need this so much at this time? So now let's just look at some of this. I got this from Brown University and Pew Research about what's going on right now in this era. Effective polarization has intensified over time. This is the sources from Brown. Using a 0 to 100 feeling thermometer, Americans rated their own party 27 points higher than the other major party in 1978. But then in 2016, this increased to 45.9. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. There's more of a us versus them, where before, it was more level. The next point here, ideological sorting is stronger among the politically engaged. Almost 4 in 10 politically engaged Democrats were consistent liberals, up from 8% in 1994. 33% of politically engaged Republicans were consistently conservative, up from 23% in 1994. Now, I'm not going to say, anything about either of these parties, but the point is the polarization is increasing. Before, it was more level. Before, people were more aligned, and that alignment is decreasing. All right. Or pardon me. Yeah, exactly. So now, why do we need viewpoint diversity? This is more information about all of the polarization. Partisan gaps on core political values have widened dramatically across 10 political values questions tracked since 1994. This is more from the Pew study. Pew reported an average 36 percentage point Republican-Democrat gap in 2017 versus 15 points in 1994. Now, some of this, okay, I'm gonna ask you for more engagement here. I'm gonna ask you to put in the chat whether without Pew Research or without Brown University, would you have felt this? Do you, in your personal life, your personal day-to-day life, at the office, at Thanksgiving dinner, at the supermarket, etc., do you feel this polarization? I'm curious. Are you seeing it? Of course, the researchers go and do their studies, but I want to know on the ground, anecdotally, are you experiencing any of this or seeing any of this? Nina, please let me know if anyone shares, because I'd be very grateful to hear whether people are experiencing this.
Absolutely. We have quite a few yeses. There's someone who specified that they see it most online. Someone said polarization feels very palpable in my life. And definitely says, oh, someone says both online and offline. And someone also mentioned that they're feeling it particularly among family and generational differences.
Very interesting. I'm glad that someone brought up this topic of online. This is very, very interesting too. Because when I was first asking the questions in my mind, I was thinking about, day to day personal interactions. But yes, I am absolutely not surprised that when you find yourself on maybe different pages, different chat rooms, whatever, you're seeing this divide. Thank you so much for all of you who've shared. All right, great. So now but this is very interesting. Americans often see extremism as a bigger problem on the other side. Okay, this is very interesting, right? Because that is very indicative of the polarization. In September, there's a September 22 to 28, 2025 survey. 77% of Republicans said left-wing extremism is a major problem, right? Versus 27% saying this about right-wing extremism. While 76% of Democrats, you see these are very similar numbers, 77 versus 76, of Democrats said right-wing extremism is a major problem, versus 32% saying this about left-wing extremism. So you even have this perspective that those people over there have become more extreme, and then the other side is saying those people over there have become more extreme. So this is more proof of like the ridiculous polarization. When you have a minute in your life and you feel, you can go look at the study yourself. I just took out some of the most, to me, salient, relevant points with statistical data about this. Okay, great. Yay. We are now halfway done. And now we're going into some of the tools. All right. So this is also from the Anti-Defamation League, Tools for Civil Disclosure. This is a framework called Can We Talk? So what do we do? What is the tool, people? Now, I'm going to preface this with always remain safe. And I'm taking a pause. I want you to think about this. I want you to use your discernment in using these tools, because there are some people who do not even have the maturity for a conversation. Now, I had to learn this the hard way. But there's some people who are so immature, for lack of a better term, that there's nothing you can do for them to open their mind, and they see anything as an attack. So I'm asking you to use your discernment in using this. I am not telling you to go to a KKK rally as a Black person, Jewish person, Native American person, Latinx person. Like, I'm not telling you to do that. Okay, there's a disclaimer here. I am not telling you to, I'm trying to think of what the opposite version is. I'm not telling KKK members to go to, what's the opposite? The Bernie Sanders committee of progressives and try this. No, I'm saying that we are doing this for people who are mature enough to handle it, which we hope is the greatest swath of people. So number one, in having civil conversations, establish ground rules. Ground rules can be created at an institutional level and disseminated widely. So I am a consultant to various organizations, and I have been in meetings and I've developed ground rules for organizations where before they start a meeting, they start with the ground rules. It's a good practice to read ground rules before each meeting, right? Or before each class or each event, and have all participants confirm their understanding of the rules. Key questions. What does each person need to feel safe and respected? What does a respectful conversation look like and feel like? How will breaking ground rules be addressed? So, again, this is not something that is extreme, Many organizations have it. Before the meeting starts, they have a mindful moment and they say, these are the ground rules. The ground rules are that we are respectful to one another. We don't engage in name calling. We don't engage in any slurs. We assume good intentions. Like I've been at many meetings. This can be employed within your organization. Start with the ground rules. You establish them. Here are some examples. Each person will listen actively. Everything said in this meeting is confidential. So you have these slides. At your organization, you can start this tradition. You can develop the ground rules and make sure that before every meeting, you have a centering moment and you actually state the ground rules to remind people. All right? So, people, 107 participants, please brainstorm some ground rules and put it in the Q&A. So I've already given you 2 examples. Each person will listen actively. Everything said in this meeting is confidential. Can you please come up with your own and put it in the Q&A? Nina is here. She is our diligent facilitator, and she will read some of them. There are 107 of you. I want to see at least 15, 20 ground rules, because the goal is not for you to just be at this presentation and get your CLE credit, although I know you want that. But the goal is for you to actually start making some changes within your organization based on it. So 108 people here, I need to see tons of ground rules. So I want you to put some ideas of what you believe would be a great ground rules within your organization. Come on now, people. I'm counting on you. All right,
We've
great.
got 2. Yeah, do not interrupt or talk over each other. There's also no elevated voices, and breaks are available if needed. One that I thought of is that you can speak respectfully, even if you're feeling strongly. This other ground rule is no hate speech. So, again, kind of being respectful to each other. Do not mock any of the opinions in this meeting, only provide constructive criticism. Sarah says challenge ideas, not people.
Love it. Anything else?
And there's one that says do not repeat statements over and over. So, kind of bringing new ideas to the table consistently. That looks like what we've got so far. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Going once, going twice before I go on to the next slides. But I mean, these are great ground rules. Of course, not mocking any of the opinions. Other people have ground rules surrounding making sure that, before people move on from one topic to another, they give everyone an opportunity to speak. Those are other ground rules that I've seen. But the point is, within all of your organizations, you can create these. HR and it can make sure that this is a practice. And I think that it generally very often leads to a feeling of safety, security, and it sets a tone of respect within an organization. All right. And going once, going twice. Any other ground rules that people are sharing, Nina?
None. We do have a question that is somewhat related to this. I think oftentimes in these conversations, the idea of being offended or offensive can come up. And we did have some person ask, Stephen asked, what would you classify as quote unquote being offended when you're setting ground rules? So if you have any insight on how that might factor in, Amal, maybe we can touch on that.
Sure. Okay, great. I'm glad that you brought this up because this is also often an issue that comes up. I also see this issue coming up very much generationally with people of Generation X, boomers, thinking that people tend to be too sensitive. So there's no quick answer to this. I wish I could wave a magic wand and give you a definition and say, oh my goodness, this is, these are the things that should offend someone. The word offensive, we know, means that someone feels as if they have been emotionally hurt or psychologically hurt by a certain comment or a certain action. But the framework for understanding when someone is going to take offense or not is not one that is so definitive that I can give you any hard and fast rules. But what I can say is this. I think that we all should work towards a culture in which intention matters, and also work towards a culture in which there is some mindfulness with respect to what is being said. And I'm going to say that this is subjective. So let me give you a few examples from my own personal life. So I have kids, and I remember when one of my big son was only like maybe 9 months or 10 months old. I took him to my friend's house, and this friend was from Colombia and had not been in the United States for a long time. And she was like playing roughhousing with my little boy and was calling him a monkey. And I knew so again, there's context. We are Black people. There's a horrible, sordid history of calling Black people monkeys. But I knew from the tone that what she was saying was not meant to be offensive. It was because they were climbing and jumping, etc. And I knew there was no offense in her heart, right? So was I offended? No. But we also have to be mindful of these histories, right? So I know of a client in which a partner at a law firm, was fired because he made the comment to a Black associate who was like, I think potentially giving some pushback about some work. And he goes, and so the partner says something like, "Your first year, you're my slave." Offensive. And this person was fired. That said, there are no hard and fast rules. So what am I asking you to do? I'm asking you to be mindful of what you're saying to whom, right? Mindful of the jokes that you're saying, mindful of the potential implication, but to still also recognize that you should cultivate an environment in which intentions are valued and are taken into account, because we don't want people to be so mindful that they're afraid and they never have conversations. So there's a balance, right? In life, there's always a balance. Your sugar's too high, you have a problem with diabetes. Your sugar's too low, you have a problem of low energy, right? Like our bodies, our societies all need balance. All right. So thank you so much for all of you who've given these great ground rules. Really appreciate it. Okay. So next, we shared some of the ground rules. Next, tools for civil disclosure, anti-defamation league framework. Listen actively. Some of you are going to put those in your ground rules. Refrain from framing your rebuttal as the other person speaks. This goes to some of the ground rules about making sure that you're listening to actually understand and not to respond. Repeat or mirror what the person says before responding. This is so crucial. And I remember getting some of this even in marriage counseling. So, I mean, a lot of this you can use in both your personal life and your professional life. If I heard you accurately, you said X, Y, and Z. It seems to me that you are saying X, Y, and Z. So you are actively listening. And saying these phrases, they help you to actively listen, because now you kind of have an assignment in being able to rephrase what the other person is saying, and it slows down the conversation, right? Ask clarifying questions. What did you mean when you said X, Y, and Z? Then before you frame your rebuttal, before you phrase your response, you are going to actually figure out what could be agreed on. We agree that we are aligned with respect to, before you start your rebuttal. So again, let's go over this, right? You're making sure that you're listening actively, not just forming your rebuttal. As you were speaking, you were engaging in mirroring. If I heard you accurately, you said, "It seems to me that you are saying," you're asking clarifying questions. What did you mean by that? You're making sure that you are clear. Now, what is this? This is going to require mindfulness, because sometimes if your emotions are so strong and you're so overwhelmed, this is very hard to do. So this may require taking some deep breaths. Okay. Now, next, you're communicating to be understood. Compose yourself and your intention so that you're not venting or grandstanding, if that's not your intention. Be aware of your words and intentional with your language, and be honest and open. Again, this takes quite a bit of maturity to use this. You're establishing ground rules beforehand. When people are speaking, you are listening actively. You are starting off with, okay, if I understand you correctly, and I've done this program, I've done programs with this, at many law firms, at law schools, and other organizations where we actually put two people in the hot seat and we have them practice this, right? Again, you can use this both in your personal and your professional life. Make sure that you are being mindful as you speak. Of course, now this kind of goes without saying, but we're going to have to say it in order to be inclusive and to be thorough. Reject all name calling, belittling, stereotyping, and bias. These should be in the ground rules. Criticize the argument and not the person. We are not our views. I want you to say this with me, okay? We are not our views. You are a human being, and yes, you have your viewpoints, but your viewpoints are not you, and other people's viewpoints are not them. And we call out name calling and stereotyping when it happens. These are tools for civil disclosure, okay? We are speaking carefully. We are listening with intent. We are engaging in mirroring. We're being intentional about our language and our communication. Oh, now this is so key, everyone. This is really, really key. Pay attention to your feelings and your triggers. I did this program at a law school that was having issues with tension surrounding anti-Semitism, the war, etc. And there were times, we had to take breaks during these conversations because it is triggering, right? Of course it's triggering. Of course it's triggering. Some people have, as we said earlier, right? People's viewpoints are very often shaped by their experiences. If someone had a great grandparent or a great grandparents who lost their lives in the Holocaust, clearly it's going to be triggering. That's to be understood. The goal is to be aware of the triggers, take a moment to note them, and to breathe into it. It's not possible to be objective and logical when emotionally triggered into fight, flight, or freeze. And I can update these to add another defense mechanism, which is fawn. Okay, it is not possible to be objective or logical, so we have to breathe. If you feel yourself becoming overly emotional, consider excusing yourself and going for a walk or taking a breather. All right, we need more interaction. So I want you all to kindly put in the chat whether you feel as if, and you can add any anecdotes if you want, whether you feel as if in everyday life you are ever seeing conversations that are like this. In your everyday life. Now, some of you, if you're going to put in the chat, actually, me and my husband use this, me and my wife use it, perfect. But I'm curious, if you really are thinking about conversations that you have on a regular basis, do you feel as if you are hearing this as like a practice in conversations? If I heard you correctly, it seems to me as if you're saying, what did you mean? Do you hear people using this sort of language in order to make sure that they're having civil conversations? There are 105 people here, 105 perspectives. Please put it in the chat. Nina, anybody responding?
We have one person that said yes, they're able to use it. I will share that for me, at my best, I use it, and I do forget to do it sometimes. So, I will be honest about that. We've got some other people that say they hear this approach really commonly for crisis lines. Sounds like this person may have some experience with that. Someone says yes in a professional setting. Another person shared really an opposite experience. I rarely hear this at my new job, not even from HR. I do my best and I try to do pretty well. This other person says, I hear it most at church and at home. And then this other person shares that they definitely use it in meditation practices. So lots of different places.
Okay, this is very interesting. So people are having different experiences because some people are saying that they're experiencing it and they're seeing this sort of method in professional settings, but not like in their personal lives at home or at church. Well, other people are kind of seeing it at home, at church, etc., but not seeing it in their professional life. Very, very, very interesting. It's something that we all can use. And I would say, in an ideal situation, whenever a topic has any potential for conflict. I mean, it could be you and your bestie deciding whether to go to DR or Paris, right? Right, Santo Domingo or Paris, and figuring, okay, well, I hear what you're saying is that you really feel as if it would be great to have a warm temperature, right? You can use this in any of those situations. And I think that, I mean, clearly we would be a lot better off if more people were able to engage in this type of conversation on a regular basis. Nina, did someone else have something to add?
I see another person that mirrors meditation, and then this person also says, I've heard of this idea, but I often forget to use it in the moment. I would like to utilize it more.
Okay, well, I thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. I think we can go back, right? So if you wind up having a conversation with someone and it winds up being heated and all of this, flies out of your brain at the time and you're triggered, I think it is perfectly possible, and we should try even our best to create situations where we go back and say, "Hey, I didn't like the way that went. Can we redo this conversation?" I think we should normalize that. So, many of you are aware that there are different types of intelligences, right? So you can even go do this yourself. Plenty of adults do it. Special needs kids often get it done. It's a neuropsych. It's like a 6-hour exam where they're testing all these different aspects of a human being's intelligence. And processing is a thing. Some people process really quickly, some people process slower, some people need more time. So I want us to normalize things like, can we just, put a pause on this for a moment? Can we put a pause on it and speak about this later? Or even if at the time you're like, oh my goodness, you make no sense, how idiotic, come back and say, can we do that again? I apologize for flying off the rails. Can we have another conversation when we're calmer? We can normalize that, right? You don't have to get everything out in the moment and feel as if the moment passed, you can never go back to it, right? I have good friends who've come back to me and said, hey, Alma, I didn't like the way that conversation went, or, oh, it's been weighing on my heart. We can do that. All right. Very good. All right. So everyone, we've remembered it. Okay. We generate ground rules. I hope you're going to bring this to all of your law firms and your schools and your corporations. We have these ground rules and we make sure that we listen actively. We engage in mirroring conversation. If I heard you correctly, it seems to me as if you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but your viewpoint is right. We ask clarifying questions. What did you mean to say? We figure out what we agree on. Okay, we agree on this, A, B, and C, right? We agree on that. And then we go on to explain ourselves with intention. And we're aware of our words and we're open and honest while still being mindful and intentional. We reject name calling, belittling, stereotyping, and bias. And we pay attention to our feelings and triggers. And we're going to add another one from this conversation, which is, if we don't get it wrong, we breathe and we go back and we ask for a redo. And if you're dealing with someone else who's mature, I would say in most cases, probably in more than half of cases, the person will be fine. All right. Next, consider the relationship. So now this is going to be huge for everyone, right? Because many of you are in these law firms, you're in these hierarchical environments. What is your relationship with the people in the conversation? Will you need to continue to interact with them? These are all considerations. Is it worth being enraged, right? Many of you, it won't be. It's rarely ever worth it, but maybe there's some situations, but right? Can you show compassion and empathy towards them? How can you speak to preserve the relationship? And remember that each person has a unique history and background. And again, we rehumanize people. We rehumanize people. And I've heard this said by gurus, spiritual gurus, that even the worst person who's killing and murdering still is a human being, right? So can we consider the relationship? Okay, be mindful of power issues. Each situation should be evaluated on a case by case basis. Some conversations may be inappropriate based on power dynamics, position, age, influence, and class. I wish I could tell you that you're going to be able to use this method in every situation, regardless of whether one person is a managing director and the other person is a clerk, all right? Like, age, influence, class, it all impacts this. But I would like to say that there's always some agency to get some civility in, right? All right, so now can't do interactive exercises, unfortunately, but I'm giving you some of these examples to show viewpoint diversity in action. COVID conflict. Jeannie's neighbor recently suffered from Bell's palsy, a neurological disorder causing weakness or paralysis on one side of the face, almost immediately after getting the COVID-19 vaccine. Jeannie is angry about the vaccine mandate for city workers and is vocal about the vaccine not being safe. Emma lost 5 relatives to COVID-19 in 1 year. It was the worst year of her life. Her closest relative, her identical twin sister, died a few months before the vaccine became readily available. She rushed to be the first in line, and she and all of her kids were vaccinated. They all had very mild symptoms when they actually contracted COVID-19. She advocates for the expanded vaccine mandates because she does not want anyone else to die from the deadly disease. Can we see how these two individuals have different viewpoints? Can we imagine? And so and when I'm doing this in person, we actually put two people in the middle of the room and they have a conversation using all of those methods that we just went over. But can we imagine that people can have different perspectives? And I'll give a personal story that inspired this example. My mother, rest her soul, died of COVID-19. She had two besties. Bestie one, let's say bestie A didn't get the vaccine because her neighbor had this Bell's palsy reaction. Now, the other bestie did get the vaccine because she saw my mother pass from COVID. And then the bestie that got a vaccine was one day on the phone with the other bestie and was like, and these stupid people who won't get vaccinated. Found out that other person didn't get vaccinated. It caused a rift. Unfortunately, the bestie that did not get vaccinated wound up dying of cancer, and the two of them never had a conversation again for like a long period of time, maybe even a year before that death. So it's kind of a real life example, right? We have to give room for other people's experiences. Trans debate. Heather's a mixed martial arts fighter who was assigned female at birth and competes as a woman. She recently lost a match to a trans woman fighter and said that the power of the blows were like nothing she had ever experienced in fighting cisgender women. She's campaigning to create a third fighting category for trans and intersex mixed martial artists. She believes that if a third category is not established, biological women will be pushed out of the sport. Sheila is a trans woman, mixed martial arts fighter who was assigned male at birth. She transitioned during her early 20s. She has always felt that she's a girl or woman since an early age and suffered from gender dysphoria-induced depression as an adolescent. Mixed martial arts saved her life. It provided an outlet for her, and she originally competed in the male category. When she finally found the courage to live her truth, she transitioned and now competes in the women's division. Her hormone levels are monitored, and she believes the competition is fair. Can you see people have different views on this, right? Okay. Another tool for this, because I want to leave 1 minute for questions and answers, are circles. Restorative circles are indigenous traditions used in criminal justice, negotiation, corporate team building. My company sends people out to do this all the time as a part of team building sessions. Each person is in a circle. There's a meditation and then there's a question. So the question might be, how do you relax when there's a hard day at work? The circle keeper answers the question and passes a talking piece. and then each person has an opportunity to answer. I love it. It's great for team building because each person is seen, heard, and understood. If you don't feel like speaking, you don't speak. If you feel like speaking, you speak. But it is non-hierarchical communication, and it really trains active listening because no response is necessary. So I pray that more organizations will avail themselves of this. All right, people. So let's sum it up. You know what viewpoint diversity is. You know why it's helpful, right? Because we need it in order to prevent things like groupthink and to prevent horrors from happening and to make sure that facts are really facts and opinions are really opinions. We set ground rules such as active listening, no belittling, right? And then we, in conversations, mirror. We mirror by saying things like, if I hear you correctly, what you said is, right? And then we make sure we figure out, what do we agree on? I believe we agree on 1, 2, and 3. And then we speak intentionally. You have your ground rules, your active listening, you agree, then you agree to disagree. All right, any questions before we head out? Thank you so much. This is my info. I'd love for you to keep in touch. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Emma, as always, for sharing all of your tips and your perspectives. It's always so helpful. We do have a few questions, so we'll go ahead and get started. This first person asks, how specifically can attorneys engage in difficult conversations without compromising professionalisms or client trust? I know you gave us some examples with the mirroring and the active listening, but are there other things that you'd like to add to that?
I 100%. Thank you so much. So yes, I absolutely use some of these methods, and then I think for an attorney, what's going to be incredibly important, especially given our own a code of ethics, is making sure that you are very often stressing the confidentiality. That is going to be what I say that for attorneys in practice with clients is going to be incredibly huge because you want to build that trust. So let's add something to that, which is stress confidentiality.
Thank you, Emma. Our next question is, how does viewpoint diversity in a legal workspace vary from other forms of diversity that you want to integrate into your practice?
Wow, I love it. I would say that they differ, but they inform each other. So remember when we were doing those slides earlier, which talked about biological sex, talked about age, etc. Part of the push for diversity and identity is the belief that through the diversity and identity, you're going to get more viewpoint diversity. And that viewpoint diversity is going to really iron sharpens iron. It's going to really strengthen your legal practice because you're going to really bash out those perspectives, so to speak, in a respectful way. Right? And the truth is really going to shine. So I will say that they are not the same because obviously someone could have the same sort of identity as me. Oh, they're a Black girl, they have African parents, they went to law school and have completely different viewpoints, right? Because the thing is, all of those identities are intersecting in different ways. Plus, there's the own, like, our own spirit, personality, upbringing. So you never have two of the same person, but it certainly informs it. So identity diversity most often informs viewpoint diversity, although they certainly are not one and the same.
Mm. Thank you, Emma, for that insight. Our next question comes from Jasmine. They're asking specifically about, a lot of these conversations that we've talked about today are hard conversations. So Jasmine asks, in your opinion, especially if communicating with a stranger when you're speaking about something that can be close to your heart or critical, do you think it's the correct course of action to end a conversation if the person has started to resort to insults or even slurs during the conversation? What would your advice be in those really difficult moments?
Thank you. I would say definitely safety first. I put that disclaimer. You are not going to be able to engage in civil conversations with every human being at every point in their lives. There are some people who do not have the emotional regulation. There was a part of the presentation where I discussed the fact that some people can't separate themselves from the views. They can't separate your views from you, and they may literally be triggered and lash out on you. So Please be discerning. There are some people that you just give it up and say, I agree to disagree, and you move on, okay? You may agree to disagree before you even hardly get into the conversation because the person does not have the emotional regulation necessary for it, and it's not about you. It's all about them. So you just move on for your own safety.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Amal. We are out of time, so I want to thank you all so much for your continued participation in the Q&A throughout our presentation today and for all of your questions. And thank you, Amal, so much for taking the time to answer our questions and just sharing your presentation with us today. We want to thank you all so much for joining us for another Justia webinar. As I mentioned earlier, if you're a lawyer attending today, don't miss out on the Justia Lawyer Directory. It's a free tool to boost your professional presence. You can claim your profile at lawyers.justia.com to connect with millions of potential clients each month. We've also added an FAQ feature to allow you to answer common questions and expand your reach in both search and AI results. And if you want even more visibility, don't forget about our Justia premium placements, gold and platinum, to put you above the competition. And you can check those out through the marketing.justia.com. Thank you all so much for joining and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did enjoy it, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next video.